You'll have heard me say this before. It's very prominent today. One of the greatest myths of whatever we're speaking about, this seeming absence of self, this non-separation, this not two-ness, is it's not special. That's got to be the greatest myth of all, that somehow I can kind of get that the specialness won't be for me, but it will have to be special. It won't be my specialness, but life will be special without me. And again, like everything in this message is paradoxical. Yes, of course it's special. It's all that there is. You can't get anything more special than everything, including nothing. There's nothing more special, but it is incredibly ordinary in its specialness. Mind-blowingly ordinary. The ordinary is the specialness. That's the secret that is no secret. You always thought special was separate from mundane, that extraordinary was separate from ordinary. Turns out not to be. You could say it's that special and ordinary fall into each other. There's no separation in that. There is, the mundane is the extraordinary. And probably the worst news that you could ever hear is that whatever dreams, hopes, fantasies you had about what you might become, what life might become, are dead as a dodo. This simply doesn't become. There is no becoming. Well, that may be the shortest introduction I've ever done, but it feels like I'm just going to sit here. So, so if you've got anything you'd like to ask, then by all means go ahead, or anything you'd like to share about specialness or ordinariness.
Tim, Bikash in chat says, I think you've frozen actually. Yeah, I think you have. Give me a second to come back. Oh, you're back. Maybe that was me. Bikash in chat says, why does it look like there is evolution?
Does it look like that though? Does it look like does it look like there's evolution? Just have a look. It doesn't look like evolution, does it? We can tell a story of evolution to try and make sense of this, but it doesn't look like evolution. Evolution is to try and make sense of how this came to be this. But you can't see evolution, can you? It's a story to make sense of what is. Don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-science. If you were asking me, rationally to make sense of this, I'll probably go for evolution over creation. But just stories. And one thing that does seem to die is a passion for any conviction of which story is correct. There would have been a time that I'd be happy in a bar or in a cafe or with family to argue for evolution over creationism, but that's not the case now. So that's quite liberating, you could say. When beliefs if beliefs are not held dearly as mine, held close to me, are part of my very sense of who I am, then there's a lightness with all stories that seems hard to imagine from a perspective as they're mine, because when they're mine, they almost feel like a matter of life and death because they're part of me. And as I say, there would still be a preference as a preferred story. I would prefer evolution over creation, but the passion for it died. The passion for that conviction that it's really important that I know what I believe, and then I fight for that belief.
David has his hand up.
Hi, David.
Hiya.
Hi. Oh, yeah.
Nice to see you. This is a very, it's a question you've been asked 1,000 times before, and it's just a variation on it, really. You must have been asked. And it's extremely naive. But I'd just like maybe if you could extemporize in it, you know, I think we kind of know what you might say, but just kick it around again. And a friend of mine, a dear friend, has all but lost his mind through quite early onset dementia.
Right.
And it's very, very rapid now. And just put at its simplest, you know, is there anything in this message by way of consolation for him, but maybe more for me? Or is it just, I'm not being facetious here, but is it just that essentially it's not happening?
Well, there's no knowing what, you know, I don't know whether that is any consolation or not. I think for some it would be consolation. You could console yourself that this, what's happening isn't really happening. But whether that's consolation or not, I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't know that. Because I think for some it would be, and for others it's not. There is very little consolation with dementia. I don't know if I've ever told you that my dad had dementia, and
Yeah.
so yeah, so I'm well acquainted with Alzheimer's, which was the diagnosis that he got, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a very, very slow decline over about 12 years. And is this consolation? I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I would say it could be. But there isn't really any consolation in that this isn't really happening.
No.
No, in a way, because this not happening is the only thing that's happening. You know, so there is no consolation in it not happening. It is all that's happening. So in a way, everything is much more immediate, direct. There's no, it can be impossible to fantasize that, you know, there's no consolation in there must be a reason for this. There's no consolation is that, oh, it's for a greater good, or that something, I can't know why, but there's something positive in this. There is no consolation. Everything is just exactly as it is. So the not happening thing aspect of this message really is of no consolation. There is no consolation in this message. It's just simply life as it is.
I've something here that I dug out just today, actually, and I may have mentioned it before, I don't know. It's just a paragraph, really, and I'll read it out. Now. I did find consolation in this, but I'm the first to accept that it might be misguided. I think it's very beautiful, and it's by Joan Tollefson. Do you know Joan
Yeah.
Tollefson?
Yeah.
And it's from a book she wrote years ago, and it's about a visit she takes with her then aging mother to her mother's friend, who is very far down the route of Alzheimer's.
Right.
And if you just excuse me, I'll read it out, if I can read it here. So the woman's name is Jane, by the way, who has the Alzheimer's. The inflections in her voice, the way she told a story, it was all exactly the same. The only difference was that now the content no longer made any sense, but it didn't really matter. Mum and I just played along, and Jane played along. The content never really makes sense anyway. And the content is never really what matters. What matters, I realized at that moment, is the current of love that is under the content, the exchange of energy the dance itself. The content is just bubbles on the surface. For some of us with sophisticated mental lives, that content can get very complex and can seem terribly engaging and important, as if we really are ironing out the meaning of life and exchanging vitally important ideas. But
Yeah.
truly, it's all just sounds. What really matters is love. And
Oh,
I think it's very
that's
beautiful.
lovely. Yeah.
You know, you might say it's kind of tree huggy, kind of like Christian
No,
people thing.
I don't think it is at all, David. No,
Yeah.
quite the opposite.
Yeah. But I mean, it certainly gave me a bit of solace, put it that way. And whether it's false or not, I'm not really bothered, actually. But it does make sense to me. I think if I can just wind up, I don't want to take too much of your time, but as I grow older, I mean, non-duality or not, you know, I'm hopelessly caught up in this shit. I have been for decades. It's not, nothing's going to happen. But one thing I have noticed is that, and I'm enjoying the video of your retreat, by the way. Really, I'm revisiting that. I couldn't attend at all. But at one point, you talk about small talk in a kind of almost dismissive way. I'm not giving the context properly. For me, the one thing I notice now is that small talk has become more important. And it's like a manifestation of everybody doing their own wee things best they can, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It is. This points to that to me. You know, it's just underneath all this, you know. Anyway, that's
well, there really is no small talk, implying that there is some large talk, some important talk, you know, some great talk. It's all meaningless. It's all essentially empty. You know, so in that sense, I get exactly what you mean. I guess what I mean is I find it harder to play a game, the small talk game. It can be, there's much more. I can't hide my disinterest. I'm guessing that's really what I meant. Whereas my courtesy and my being a nice guy would override that, and I would feign interest in no matter how tedious someone's story was.
Yeah.
And I'm not so good at that.
Okay, fair enough. I accept that. There's a nice
but I do what Joan said about love, that there's no doubt about that. I don't find that tree huggy, or because the love that we're speaking of isn't a tree huggy love. It's ruthless as hell. It's not fluffy. It's unspeakable. But yeah, it is love. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Tim.
Oh, thank you. No, that's good. I remember one of the first books I read was Joan.
Yeah, she has a very distinctive kind of way with her, I think.
Yeah, yeah, she does. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tim, in the chat, Carol says, another non-duality speaker recently posted a lovely poem about the beautiful ordinariness of this.
Oh, yeah.
Yet he's also very vocal against the loss of freedoms arising right now in the world, and he appears to believe this is not just a story. How do you reconcile both? Well,
I don't have to reconcile any of that. He's just barking away however he wants to bark. There's no need for me. One of the wonderful things is you don't have to reconcile anything that anyone else says anymore. That's probably the greatest freedom of all. Nothing rests on what anyone else speaks. And so it may seem incompatible to speak about non-duality and then be passionate about I don't know, politics of any kind, or whatever there seems to be a passion for, but that just naturally happens. And it's as though non-duality, there is a certain way that it has to be. So, but there isn't. This is always. And no way. So there isn't there would be no thought of having to reconcile that, or it seemingly being irreconcilable to be a non-duality speaker and then talk about what's happening in the world. So what? All we're speaking of is that whatever passions arise, they're not yours. It's just naturally happening. Or, yeah, there's no knowing. But again,
note in as well.
Go on. Sorry, Darren.
My internet connection, something up with my internet connection, so I may get cut off, but I think we'll just see how it goes.
Okay. If you ask me my opinion about, which you haven't, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you ask me my opinion about the seeming loss of freedoms for individual human beings, then there would be natural opposition to that. That's nothing to do with non-duality whatsoever. That's how this character is, always has been. There's a very natural aversion here to being told what to do by anybody. What we're trying to speak about has nothing to do with any of the words. But it's all we've got to communicate. Or you could hug each other, that would be better. But one of the worst things of the whole pandemic is the lack of physical contact that we've had as human beings. I'm very opposed to that. There you go, you're getting all my political beliefs. I think that everyone should embrace each other, unless you're actually repulsed by them and, you know, want to kill them. That might be a bit false. But physical contact, we're very physical social animals. Social distancing is excruciating for a lot of human beings and very damaging in the story.
Michael has his hand up.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Tim. There was reference earlier that love is real, or seems to boil. Everything seems to boil down to love, or simmer down to love. Couldn't it be said that love is also merely an idea? It doesn't actually exist. That it perhaps is just an intuitive unicity, a deep knowingness that we are each other, or that we don't exist without each other's presence, without one another, that we exist only in each other's light. Somehow love, to me, seems to be that intuited unicity that is objectified, associated with the feel-good chemicals that comes with that.
Yeah.
What? I just lost the words.
Well, yeah, you could say that. But it's not just each other, is it? I mean, it is. Oh, how much love is there for a beloved cat, or a beloved tree, or a beloved landscape?
Perhaps it's intuited unicity with life.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be happy with that. I wouldn't even call it unicity. It is just because unicity just implies that, you know, that there was me and now I'm one with that, and it's even that feels like a stretch. It's just that there isn't any distance between.
It exists in our head, in our brain, everything. Maybe that's a deep knowingness that we are everything we see.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's for me, it doesn't, I don't get a sense that it's a knowing that, but you know, language just, yeah. Intuited is probably the best word we've got. So you could call it an intuitive knowing without any knowledge, because it doesn't require any knowing to be present. I don't know, really. It's just where all words fail here. But yeah, when I'm speaking of love, it's just a word for the unspeakable. Yeah. No, there isn't a thing called love, for sure. No, for absolute sure. But then there isn't a thing called emptiness, and there isn't a thing. All the words that I use, they're not things, but they're just pathetic, and they do feel pathetic a lot of the time. Attempts to try and convey this incredible aliveness that we call being alive, that we call life. And the whole illusion is that there is someone that knows stuff about life. Then there isn't, and life doesn't require any knowledge or understanding to be exactly as it is. That's the desire to speak about that is just, again, a really poor attempt to communicate that I know you want to know life. I know you want to understand life, and that's okay, but it's all futile. How would you understand everything? Because that's what we're speaking. You know, I mean, it's the arrogance. The arrogance of self is this desire for knowledge and understanding. And really, what I'm always trying to convey is that that's kind of what died. You know, there was no me to die. What seems to not appear anymore is this insatiable desire to know the unknowable. Well, that seems to have evaporated. And it's not been replaced by anything other than what I might call love, in, again, a pathetic attempt to say what is left. But yeah, it's not love in any way that I would have considered love as a personal love. No.
I just lost my thought.
Michael, that's easily done.
My thought. Wouldn't it be terrible if we did understand everything?
Oh, wouldn't it be dreadful? Yeah, well, I mean, the whole nature of self is its desire to be God.
Mm.
That's how it feels here, you know,
Mm.
that I would be all knowing. And I'm well aware that some people take non-duality to be just that.
Mm.
I mean, how far from that couldn't be further from what I'm trying to speak of.
Rumi says, but hush, we can go no further.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this really is, there is a sense of, there is no going any further, yeah.
Mm. Thanks,
Some characters are quiet, and others like the sound of their own voice. So, but the wonderful thing is whether this is spoken of or not, it just makes no difference at all. And I mean, that feels like love as well. So whether there's speaking of love or there's just silence, it's all love. I mean, I'm now overusing the word because you told me it wasn't a thing. but that's just it. That it doesn't need nothing needs to be a certain way.
No, there are no things to be separate ways. No.
No.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my. Well, thanks, Tim.
Oh, thank you, Michael. You were always asking me the love question. Because life's not asking any questions. Love's not asking any questions. This is not asking any question. And it's not that there can't be answers, but all the answers are empty. And in that, there's a lightness to whether there's seeming knowing or not. It seems to make no difference. And there is great relief in that. I mean, all that you know, all that you've held precious, your knowledge and understanding, it is laid to waste. Being seen for what it is. Empty thoughts, empty ideas, empty beliefs. That's the freedom. And that's what I would call love.
Can I say something about love, Tim?
Go on, David.
Yeah. No, and I don't want this to become personal at all, but I mean, many years ago, and it turns out to be a bit of a curse, actually, but that's just my story. I had, a mind-blowing experience, literally, actually. It just poleaxed me for a couple of days. all gone and not going to come back. But the one, I mean, there's so many things I could say or try to say about it. But the one thing, and it's brought it back, hearing you talk, and Michael saying some lovely things there about love. The only thing I could use to describe it is that how inadequate love was as a word to describe it. But it was as close as one could get. I was feverishly looking for a word or words. And of course, it was love, but it was a million miles away. Now, to move just beyond that, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't normal or obvious or simple, or maybe that points to the fact that it was just a piece of psychosis or something like that. But there was nothing, you couldn't live in it, I don't think.
Well, fortunately, you don't have to, David. So there's the good news.
Yeah.
The blessed news is no, neither could you, nor you have to. So that's great.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Maybe
love was not. It was as close as I could get, but it was so far away.
Yeah.
And that's my memory of it. That's a kind of negative thing, actually, in a way. You know, it's the only way I can find to try and express it. But as I say, it's. I don't think I'm alone in that. You get that kind of thing, and it is a bit of a curse. I mean, it's haunted me ever since. You know?
Yeah. Well, what we call awakening experiences, those mind-blowing, you could call them a curse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because immediately, I mean, even now you say, you know, it's gone and never to return.
Yes, yes.
Well, you know, and it's like, oh, bastard. Yeah, I was there, and then I just that's all I was gifted. I was just gifted that tiny little moment, that glimpse.
I know, and even I can see how ridiculous that is.
Yeah, I know, but that is, you can't help it. And that is, you could say that I lived in the curse of what I call my awakening experience, my mind-blowing, and lived in the longing to return, and really what was all, this sounds absolutely dreadful. Really all I'm speaking about is that longing died.
Yes.
Which, you know, sounds like dreadful news, but God, there's some peace in it. That there was never for me in my longing. I was always just like this all-consuming longing for love. Yeah.
The curious thing in this case was this was prior to me getting into non-duality.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it's almost sure to be, David. That's that. You know, in the story, that seems to be the catalyst, doesn't it?
Well, it only made sense upon encountering certain people.
Yeah, for me too. Yeah.
But it's not a love thing. I want, not just about my experience, but just the word love and how loaded it is and how great and inadequate it is at the same time, in a way, you know.
Yeah.
It is all we've got, really.
Well, unless we make up a new lexicon, which I know you're quite keen on. Michael's pretty good at making up new words, or thinking up new words that we might use.
Well, that could be the competition for the week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but hi. It's
hi,
Alice. Hi. I would say that there's been a bit of a change in something, in as much as there is more more of a, I'm going to say experience really, but it's not exactly that. Hang on a second.
That's right.
Like, sorry, I haven't got really the words. Like an impersonal seeing. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like Michael touched upon it earlier as well. Like, yeah, it's like, okay, so what I'm seeing is different in a way, but we're seeing exactly the same thing. Like Tim's seeing the same thing. We're all seeing the same thing. It's all the same, and that has, I would say, has penetrated my being much more than it has in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's not
it's
even,
really, it's
yeah.
really like I'm yeah, it's really interesting. there's like a much more of a sense of like a dissolution in some respects. Yeah, but I'm all over the place as well, you know.
Sure to be.
And but it's yeah, that, yeah,
That's a lovely phrase, being all over the place, Ellis.
yeah,
Isn't it?
because it, yeah, because
Isn't
it's
that
like,
great?
because yeah,
take that literally. It's really
literally,
good, isn't it?
yeah, because that's in a way,
What's happening? I'm all over
that's
the
what's
place.
happening. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
So
thanks.
yeah, thanks.
It's so hard to talk about, Ellis. Yeah, but yeah, all over. I don't
And
know.
then sometimes actually there's like, I can notice like a small sense of myself, but it's only very I'm seeing that much more clearly now, and then it's almost like a re something to that more impersonal place again.
Yeah. So
Oh,
sometimes you're in the right place, and sometimes you're all over the place, Ellis.
or the other way around, or I don't
the other
know,
way
but
around.
yeah.
Oh, thanks. That's
Yeah,
lovely.
thanks.
Well, I don't know if it is lovely or not, really.
It is at the moment. At the
Oh,
moment,
that's all right.
there's like quite a release going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Because of course it can be very disconcerting to feel.
It had been disconcerting, but I would say today, especially, there's been more of a sense of release.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Thanks, Alice. Michael Bikash says, "You're all love." He obviously doesn't know you that well, but he and Michael, he can see it as well.
Oh, bless his heart.
I know, how lovely.
How lovely. I was thinking, how can we name emotions? Emotions are just chemical reactions in the brain, and it's a constant changing of, let's say, the feel-good chemicals are four like dopamine and serotonin and all of this interplay of electrochemical reactions and gradients of all of those, and we try to put names on them, and when we're have the right amount of dopamine, that's getting close to love, and then a little more serotonin and that's love, and all of this is a gradient. There's no nameable. I'm sorry for the phone. There's nothing nameable in that. It's just experiential.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's just so beautiful. there's a commonality there. We try to reach it with this word called love, but we all know what we're talking about. We've all lost a loved one. We've lost the light from their presence. We ache, we long. You mentioned one time you haven't lost the longing, and that made me love you more. We are life's longing.
Yeah.
I think when we embrace that, something,
Yeah.
and I'm not suggesting to try to embrace our longing, but
I was just to say about the loss of longing. It was loss of. I haven't lost longing. What was lost was the longing to know.
Oh, it's beautiful. That gives me chills.
Because there's no loss of longing because life is longing. It's the human condition, of course.
Yes.
That just seems really just terribly obvious. Love's longing.
Love's longing.
Yeah. And love loves longing.
Oh.
So does. It's just the nature. But what was lost was that longing to understand and to know. I mean, that was the greatest curse. And that was what I did with knowledge and understanding. That was my defense against love's longing, you could say. That with if I knew, then I would just be better defended against love.
There'd be no poetry, no painting, no orchestra, no Beethoven. Monet's garden. He strapped a brush to his hand when he was a little old man. He's trying to capture that pond. He's longing to capture that pond in 2 dimension.
Yeah.
It's just lovely longing.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks again, Tim.
And I'm not afraid. The other thing I would say about the longing is that there's no fear of it anymore. And I was always terrified of longing. And love is what I feared most of all. I was most afraid of love's longing because it was felt that it would kill me. Love would kill me. Love would destroy me.
It will.
I know.
It has.
It's so true. And that is what self is. And the great, that's why this is worth speaking about it. The most wonderful news that you could ever hear is love was nothing to fear. Love is nothing to fear. The longing is nothing to fear.
Desire. Desire is just another word for longing.
Yeah. Yeah. So all the spiritual myths about desire being the enemy, you couldn't get further from what wants to be said. Beautiful human desire. I mean, all the most beautiful acts and creativity, it's all from desire.
Maybe longing is desire. Maybe they're the same.
Yeah, you could say.
Maybe that's what we all have in common. Maybe that's.
Yeah, and what selves have in common generally is a fear of it. That I'll lose control. Desire is so powerful, love so powerful that I will lose control, and I want to be in control. I long for the loss of control, and then I absolutely fear it intensely. And there's nothing to fear.
The loss of control is the loss of something we never had.
Yeah, it is the loss of nothing at all. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Tej has his hand up.
Tej.
Yeah, hi, Tim. I enjoyed that discussion, but for some reason I was feeling it was sounding a bit like a soap opera.
What? Like, so my new romance.
Yes. I was just not to forget that everything is empty, you know.
Yeah, well, we've done a lot of love today, Tej. Maybe that's what's getting under your skin. And you just want to hear, I don't want to hear that fucking love. I want empty. Empty is what I want to hear.
No, exactly. That's the way I was feeling. What the heck are they talking about?
What the hell? What is this shit love that they're talking about?
It's totally empty. It's nothing, absolutely nothing, meaning nothing, no value.
Well, that's the wonder. The wonder is that love is of no value. That's why it's love and unconditional. If it was of value, if it had, you know, there was greater and lesser of it, then it wouldn't be unconditional. No.
Yeah, that is true.
The emptiness, I don't know if it's any good, Tej, but the emptiness is just another word for the love.
Yeah, it is. At the same time, it's totally empty, meaning nothing, signifying nothing. There is no we.
No.
Yeah.
And yet here we are, Tej. I mean, that's
Anyway,
the great. No, I really mean it. That's the greatest paradox. It's that. So yeah, there's no me and you. There's no we. And here we are.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the most incomprehensible aspect of this whole message is that is not contradictory. As contradictory and paradoxical as it sounds, no, both are equally true and equally untrue, and neither makes any difference.
Yeah, I just thought I'd give the other point of view as well.
You just wanted to hear a bit of emptiness, didn't you, Tej?
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, it's a bit Sri Nisargadatta, I think. I always get them wrong. The two great Indian gurus, if I quote them, I usually go, David goes, no, it's the other one, that's Maharaj. You got it wrong again. But I think it's the chain smoker, who of course I have much greater affinity with than the chap in Nappers. I never had much affinity with them. It was far too Puritan for me.
Yeah, right.
Far too Puritan. But it's something along the lines of, so the emptiness is just a way of trying to express peace, the okayness of what we're speaking of, that the essential, that everything that's happening isn't really happening, it's empty, is peace, and love is the fullness. And Nisargadatta said something like, between the two, my life flows. So love is the fullness and peace is the emptiness. And they're not two. So whether you call it peace or emptiness or love or fullness or life or death, this or that, now and then, none of that is true. You know, they're not the same and they're not different. That's really as far as you're going to get. It's not that everything is the same. No, of course not. Seeming difference is all the beauty and all the love. And the peace is the seeming sameness. And the seeming sameness and the seeming different are not two. We're just simply speaking of, it can appear that there are no questions, that that's unquestionable. And you don't need to know, is it one or the other? Well, it's one and the other. So is life ultimately special or ordinary? It's specially ordinary, it's ordinarily special. That's it. So, I feel I should apologize to Tej for the soap opera, but I don't think I should. And then on the other hand, I don't think I should either. But there is this aspect of when you're listening, this isn't what I came for, this isn't what I want to hear, these aren't the words, this isn't, I want the emptiness, I don't want the fullness. Well, that's, you know, you don't get one without the other. This is one and the other. Has anybody got a last question before we call it a day? Well, thanks very much for coming. If you'd like, you can always have a one-to-one with me, and you know, financially support me if you'd like to, by having a one-to-one. If that floats your boat, you'll get bugger all for it, but you know, if you would like one, it's on offer. You just go to Tim Cliss this and have a look, and you can book a slot on that. If you'd like to make a donation, they're gratefully received. And can I just say, I mean, it's been a couple of weeks since I did the weekend, but thanks to everybody who came to the weekend and made that what it was, it was great. It was great fun. And I was a bit apprehensive about it, if I'm honest, but it went really well. So thanks to everyone who came to that. Somebody did ask me about the recordings of that, but of course at the moment they're exclusive because people did pay to come to the weekend. So at the moment they're getting them, and then at a later date I'll share those if you'd like to see them. Thanks for those who participated in today's soap opera. No, it is funny because non-duality, I mean, it is a hell of a soap opera. It's got, yeah, just the same. It's no different. You know, characters who are in favor, characters who are out. Oh no, he's well out of favor now. All the gossip around, you know how popular it is to gossip about what's going on in soap operas. Yeah, non-duality is no different. But it's all empty. It doesn't matter. Everyone has their favorite characters and their favorite, you know, the villains of the soap. And of course, the charlatans. But it's all really, the reality of it is it's all very light. None of it has any essential meaning or purpose. It's not. It's all of no great significance. Quite the contrary. You may call what we're speaking of freedom just in the simple obviousness of the absolute insignificance of everything. And again, that can feel like love. I'll finish with the word, Tej. I'm not sure. It's just been full of it today. Thanks very much for coming, everybody. Take care.
Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Actually, I enjoyed it, Tim. Thank you.
I'm only winding you up. It's all great.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Tim.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye. Still here.